Anime doesn't do subtle. You want drama? Enjoy a 3-episode screaming match where the only thing getting hurt is your patience. Action? Expect a city block to vanish before the real fight even starts. And power? Oh, forget just winning. Anime characters love to turn their enemies into fine dust particles just to prove a point. That, my friends, is the art of overkill. And to keep things organized, I've split this madness into 3 categories. The fun side of overkilling, where things get comedic and ridiculous. The terrifying side of overkill, where characters go full merciless mode. And when overkill backfires, because sometimes too much power is not a good thing. Can you guess which entries belong where? Place your bets now, and let's begin. The fun side of overkill. Comedic and ridiculous moments. Not all overkill moments are dark and brutal. Sometimes they're hilariously excessive, designed to showcase how absolutely untouchable a character is. These moments don't just make the fights entertaining, they turn them into events. Moments when you're not even worried about the hero losing, you just want to see how badly the enemy gets wrecked. Let's take a look at some of anime's most legendary flexes. Saitama, One Punch Man. Saitama trains so hard that no enemy is even a challenge anymore. His biggest struggle? Boredom. He one-punches opponents who trained for centuries, casually slapping away planet-busting attacks, and even pretending to struggle just to keep things interesting. When a character's biggest enemy is having nothing left to fight, you know we're on another level of overkill. It's not just his strength that makes him ridiculous, it's how nonchalant he is. Villains are out here screaming about revenge, unleashing ultimate forms, and Saitama's just worried about making it to the supermarket sale on time. The real overkill is how effortlessly he wins without even trying. He is so overpowered that his biggest fights happen inside his own head, like the time he dreamed of an actual challenge and then woke up disappointed. Imagine having nightmares of fun battles because real life just doesn't deliver. Even when Saitama meets someone remotely strong like Boros, he still holds back out of politeness. When a guy literally regenerates from nothing and unleashes a planet-busting attack, Saitama just throws a serious punch, not even his full strength, and erases everything in his path. He could probably one-punch the laws of physics if he wanted to. Escanor, 7 Deadly Sins.
人間です。ただし、すべての種族の頂点に立つものでもある。私が7つの大罪、傲慢の罪、ライオン神、エスカノール様だ。
Sometimes overkill is about attitude and class. No one oozes arrogance and raw dominance quite like Escanor, the lion's sin of pride. This man doesn't just defeat his opponents, he completely overwhelms them. One of his most iconic moments is when his opponent called him weak, and Escanor lets out an actual laugh, saying, "Who decided that?" and obliterates the guy with an axe swing powered by the freaking sun. And let's not forget his signature move, simply standing there. His presence alone starts burning enemies alive. A guy so powerful that his own body heat turns people into steam? Yeah, that's the power of overkill with maximum flex. One of the best parts of Escanor's overkill moments is his absolute disregard for acknowledging his enemies as threats. He has the audacity to ask, "Are you even trying?" when his opponent is giving it everything they've got. And let's not forget that he gets stronger the closer it is to noon. If you ever find yourself in a fight with him at exactly 12 p.m., just accept your fate. You do not survive peak Escanor. Even his weakest vision, when the sun sets and he becomes a frail, timid man, he still manages to win fights through sheer confidence alone. Killua, Hunter x Hunter. So we all know Killua Zeldic as a trained assassin. He is aloof and just a chill guy, but when he gets serious, he turns into a nightmare. And nothing proves that more than his iconic heart-ripping scene. Here's the setup. Some loudmouth enemy thinks he's got the upper hand. He's cocky, and he's provoking Killua. Before he even realizes what's happening, Killua casually walks past him, holding his still-beating heart in his hand. No dramatic build-up, no flashy power-up sequence, just a blink-and-you-miss-it execution so fast that the guy doesn't even register that he's already dead. If there was ever an anime equivalent of saying, "Don't waste my time," this is it. But what makes this even more chilling is Killua's expression, stone cold. It's just business. He's so efficient at killing that it barely even registers as an event for him. And let's not forget, he was only a kid. Later in the series, Killua gets even more ridiculous. His Godspeed ability turns him into literal lightning, allowing him to move so fast that enemies don't even realize they've lost. The moment he activates it, it's game over. Jotaro Kujo, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Nothing, and I mean nothing, screams overkill quite like Jotaro Kujo's beatdowns. You know exactly what I'm talking about. The second Jotaro yells, you already know some poor fool is about to get turned into a human punching bag for way longer than necessary. Each hit is a reminder that his opponent never stood a chance to begin with, and he never holds back, just a relentless, disrespectful storm of fists. Some fighters use beatdowns as a finisher, but Jotaro? No, that is just his start. He later drags them out for maximum humiliation. The sheer length of the beatdowns become its own joke, turning a simple fight into a legendary moment of disrespect. There are fights when the enemy is already defeated, but the beatdown continues for an extra 30 seconds just to make a point. And the best part? Even the villains do it. Dio's infamous Muda 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 is just as over the top as Jotaro's Ora Ora Ora, proving that nobody is safe from overkill in this anime. The terrifying side of overkill. Brutal, merciless moments. Not all overkill moments are fun and games. Absolute power isn't always just impressive, but it's also terrifying. When a character doesn't just win, but absolutely dominates his opponent, you start to ask yourself, is this for real? In some of the next moments that we'll be looking at, power is used as a tool in instilling pure fear. When it turns from just defeating your enemies to breaking the concept of their will, it's what true overkill is all about. It's the kind of power that turns battlefields into mass graves, warriors into spectators, and hope into nothingness. When these characters step onto the battlefield, they change the course of the story itself. So let's take a look at some of the most merciless and brutal moments. Meruem, Hunter x Hunter. Meruem, the Chimera Ant King, is what happens when evolution creates something too perfect. From the moment he is born, he is fundamentally superior to humans. And I mean in every way. He proves it mercilessly. He proves it when he encounters Netero, one of humanity's strongest fighters. Instead of engaging in a battle of equals, Meruem toys with him. He withstands hundreds, even thousands of Netero's most powerful attacks, a barrage so intense that any other being would have been turned into dust. But Meruem? He barely takes a scratch. And when it's time for him to fight back, he doesn't even need to try. His power is so overwhelming that he lets Netero wear himself out. Confident that nothing the old man can do will ever amount to anything. Even when Netero self-destructs using a weapon equivalent to a nuclear bomb, Meruem still survives. But the true horror of Meruem isn't just his strength, it's the way he thinks. He doesn't see humans as enemies or even obstacles. He sees them as inferior creatures whose only real use is to entertain him. His detached, analytical nature makes his violence all the more chilling. To him, human suffering is just the natural order of things. He represents the ultimate fear. What happens when humanity meets something it simply cannot defeat?
やはり言わねばならぬな。世は毒に侵され長くない。
メルエム様。
最後、小麦、お主と打って過ごしたかった。
Wake up to reality.
Madara Uchiha, Naruto Shippuden. If anime had a Hall of Fame for Overkill, Madara versus the Shinobi Alliance would have the platinum plank. The setup? Well, the combined military force of every ninja in the nation. Thousands of trained warriors band together to stop a single man. Sounds like a fair fight, right? Well, wrong. He obliterates them. One man against an army. No fancy strategy or jutsu, just his pure power. He single-handedly bodies entire battalions, dodging hundreds of attacks without even looking, and just casually wipes out the battlefield with meteors. Yes, plural, because one wasn't enough. And when the Alliance finally thinks they have a plan, he just turns on Susanoo and just starts destroying them all over again. You know what's funny though? The 5 Kage actually thought they could take down Madara, until he decided to make it fair by giving each of them 5 Susanoo to deal with. His display of dominance was so overwhelming that even the strongest ninja can only watch in horror. Madara was only there to make a statement, to show them a small fraction of what he was capable of. What's even worse, he does it all while barely trying. When he finally gets serious and awakens the Rinnegan, he takes his overkill to a god-tier level, resurrecting himself and proving that even death isn't enough to stop him. What makes this even more terrifying is the sheer enjoyment of the carnage. There's no desperation or urgency, just an unstoppable force treating war like a playground. Ainz Uogaon, Overlord. When your main character is an undead sorcerer king with no moral restraint, things get real dark real fast. Enter Ainz Uogaon, a former gamer trapped in a fantasy world who decides to roleplay as an omnipotent overlord, and guess what? He actually pulls it off. His most terrifying moment? The battle against 70,000 soldiers. To him, this is a demonstration. It's nothing. He casually just raises a hand and casts super tier magic. And suddenly entire landscapes are drenched in blood. It summons grotesque, creepy beings that continue the massacre. Consuming thousands. But what makes Ainz truly terrifying is his absolute detachment from morality. You would think the guy who was once a human would be more aware, but it seems that playing his character fits him well. He sees genocide the way a scientist sees an experiment, as a means to an end. The sheer hopelessness is what makes this moment terrifying. The opposing army realizes far too late that they never stood a chance. Ainz has established himself as a god, and gods don't fight, they erase. Levi Ackerman, Attack on Titan.
死ぬな生き延びろ
What makes Levi so scary is his godlike reflexes, and his ability to overcome even the biggest threats. And don't be confused, this man doesn't have any superpowers. He's just too fast for you to react.
こいつがリヴァイか同じ
He single-handedly dismantles the Beast Titan, who doesn't even see it coming. In mere seconds, Levi turns a colossal threat into a shaking mess, slicing tendons, stabbing weak points, and delivering so many cuts per second that Zeke doesn't even realize he's lost until it's too late. Levi isn't just a soldier, he is a walking apocalypse to the Titans, and his ability to wipe out entire Titan squads alone has made him a living legend, with even the most powerful enemies fearing his name.
一人の兵士に気をつけろって？はい、リヴァイ兵長は危険です。
He makes sure the Titans never forget why they should be afraid of him. Father, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Some villains want power, others want control. Father, he wants supremacy, and he proves that he is beyond human comprehension when he absorbs the entire population of Amistris in an instant. No warning, no battle, just a single moment where an entire country disappears. Millions of lives erased without struggle. Now that kind of overkill is existentially terrifying, and not just overwhelming. Unlike other villains who destroy for the sake of chaos, Father just doesn't care. He sees genocide as nothing more than a necessary step toward evolution. His ability to reshape reality makes him not just powerful, but beyond human understanding. When Overkill Backfires. When too much power is a problem. Now we have seen that power doesn't always lead to victory. Sometimes the very thing that makes a character untouchable is also what leads to their downfall. What happens when Overkill becomes a curse? When a character's overwhelming power isolates them, warps their mind, or makes them reckless? The next section explores the tragic side of Overkill, where too much power leads to regret, destruction, and ultimately self-destruction.
So だ。
僕が キラだ。
Light Yagami, Death Note. At first, Light Yagami's use of the Death Note is calculated and methodical. He eliminates criminals, avoids suspicion, and outsmarts everyone. But as his kill count rises, so too does his delusion of power. His overkill doesn't just apply to his victims, it applies to his own paranoia. Light stops using the Death Note to create justice and starts using it to eliminate anyone who even slightly inconveniences him. He moves from criminals to detectives, from threats to potential threats, and he stops seeing people as humans and starts seeing them as pawns on his chessboard. But his fatal mistake? He gets sloppy. Convinced of his own infallibility, he overestimates himself and underestimates Nier. His arrogance blinds him to the fact that he has left a trail of evidence. By the time he realizes he's been cornered, it's too late. And what makes it even worse is that Light had every opportunity to stop. He could have walked away, let the world believe that Kira was gone, or even worked from the shadows. But his own obsession with dominance made him his own biggest enemy. His final moments were broken, desperate, and powerless. And that is the ultimate proof that overkill without control always leads to self-destruction. Maku no uchi Ippo, Hajime no Ippo. Next up, we have Ippo's story. That isn't about destruction, it's about doubt. Unlike most overpowered fighters, Ippo doesn't revel in his strength. In fact, it scares him. After years of grueling training and fighting, he realizes that his power might be doing more harm than good. One of the most defining moments of his career was when he utterly destroys an opponent, not just beating them, but breaking them. His punches hit so hard that they end careers. The realization that his fists are capable of ruining lives forces Ippo to question everything. Is it really a victory if his opponent can never fight again? If his strength only brings pain, should he even continue boxing? His overkill is not just a weapon, it's a weight on his soul, and that burden eventually leads him to stepping away from the ring. And the tragedy? He walks away without answers. He doesn't retire a champion or with closure, he simply leaves the sport, haunted by the question, was it all worth it? Guts, Berserk. Guts, on the other hand, wields the Dragon Slayer, a sword so massive that it obliterates everything in its path. But unlike the most overpowered protagonists, Guts never wins easily. His strength, his rage, and his overkill-level destruction only serves to pull him deeper into suffering. The more powerful he becomes, the more he loses his comrades, his peace, and even his sanity. His power makes him a target for forces beyond his control. Guts' entire existence is defined by struggle. Every time he fights, he pushes himself beyond human limits, and yet no amount of strength can free him from the torment that follows. His fights carry a deep mental and emotional battle, where each victory only serves to deepen his pain. And perhaps the cruelest irony, the very power that helps him survive is also what keeps him trapped in endless battle. He is cursed to fight forever, unable to stop, unable to rest. Shigaraki Tomura, My Hero Academia. Shigaraki starts out as a mere pawn of All for One, but as his decay quirk evolves, so too does his thirst for destruction. His power escalates from disintegrating small objects to erasing entire city blocks in an instant. What starts as a weapon against the heroes quickly becomes something that even he struggles to control. His most terrifying moment comes when, in a moment of rage, he reduces an entire army to dust, wiping out thousands in the blink of an eye. But the more powerful he becomes, the less of himself remains. His body begins breaking down under the strain, and even his mind fractures as his master's influence fights for control. Shigaraki wanted power to take control of his destiny, but in the end, his own power started controlling him. His overkill happened with him losing his identity to his own rage. Shigeo Mob Kageyama, Mob Psycho 100.
目を閉じろ。それを見るな、シゲオ。
Mob is an Esper with godlike psychic abilities, but unlike most overpowered characters, he doesn't want to use it. His greatest fear is losing control. When his emotions reach a breaking point, his power explodes beyond his will, leading to massive destruction. Cities crumble, people get hurt, and Mob doesn't even remember what happened. He struggles with trying not to hurt others, and then he loses control over his emotions and power. One of his most heartbreaking moments comes when his power completely takes over, and he becomes a force of nature nature, unable to recognize friend from foe. And when he finally wakes up, the damage is already done. Unlike most characters in this list, Mob's overkill isn't just an act of malice or arrogance, it's an uncontrollable part of who he is. And the scariest part, he's just a kid trying to live a normal life. Sasuke Aizen, Bleach.
そうだ来いこっちへオーダー
Aizen is one of anime's most untouchable villains. His intelligence, his illusions, and his sheer power make him nearly unbeatable. But his downfall is, you'll never guess it, it's his own boredom. For years, Aizen manipulates, deceives, and dominates without a challenge. He's so powerful that he stops seeing anyone as his equal. He holds back not because he needs to, but because he's waiting for something interesting to happen. And that's what makes his fall so poetic. When Ichigo finally surpasses him, Aizen doesn't even see it coming. His arrogance blinded him to the idea that he could lose, and his overkill wasn't just in battle, it was in his own mind. He thought he was untouchable, and that's exactly why he fell. So kids, what's the moral of today's video? We've seen that overkill in anime is more than just an extravagant display of power. It's a storytelling tool that can be used to evoke hype, fear, or tragedy. Across the 3 sections, we've explored how overkill moments can be exhilarating, making us cheer for the sheer performance of unstoppable dominance, but we've also seen the darker side, where the power can become a source of fear, shifting the tone of the story from action-packed to terrifying. And finally, we've witnessed how unchecked power can lead to downfall, showing that sometimes the strongest characters pay the highest prices, not just in battle, but in identity, morality, and even their very existence. Overkill moments have given us some of the most unforgettable scenes in anime history. They make us laugh, leave us in awe, and sometimes make us question the cost of absolute power. A moment of dominance can define a character, but it can also be their undoing, as they become either feared, isolated, or consumed by their own abilities. Some become legends, while others fade into nothingness, their once invincible strength turning into a cautionary tale. Overkill isn't just about strength, it's about what happens after the battle. The strongest fighters often find themselves alone, their victories hollow, and their power a burden rather than a gift. And for those who wield power without restraint, the fall is often as spectacular as the rise. Some characters lose themselves entirely, becoming monsters in pursuit of dominance, while others are left wondering if their strength was even worth the cost. Time and time again, anime has long explored the questions of whether power is a blessing or a curse, and time again, we see that absolute power rarely comes without a price. Whether it's the cost of humanity, identity, or even one's own life, overkill is a double-edged sword, one that cuts just as deeply in victory as in defeat. So here's the real question. If you had that kind of power, what would you use it for? Would you hold back, fearing the consequences, or would you embrace it fully no matter the cost? Because in anime, one thing is certain, there's always someone willing to take things too far, and sometimes they don't live to regret it. What do you think? Do you appreciate the art of overkill? When is overkill too much and when is it too little? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.